My name is Arnav Mishra, and I'm going to tell you a story that I've written myself. Noah Fox, 8 years old, found himself in his grandparents' home when his parents had to take a business trip to Colorado. His eyes watered as he had never been away from his parents for more than a day, let alone 3 weeks. His grandparents were trying to be as caring as possible towards Noah. He was their grandson after all. A week went by, and Noah was beginning to adjust to the new environment. Miss Fox and Noah were playing a 1990 game of Monopoly. Just then, the phone rang. Mr. Fox went to answer the phone. 5 minutes went by, and Mrs. Fox decided to go and check on Mr. Fox. When she went, she realized that Mr. Fox had a serious expression on his face, and he was listening attentively to what the person on the phone was saying. 20 minutes into the call, Mr. Fox slowly and shakily put the phone down and sat down on the nearest chair. Mr. Fox told Miss Fox, "They're gone." Mrs. Fox was confused. "Who's gone?" she asked. Mr. Fox replied, "Noah's parents. They're dead." Just then, Noah walked into the room. His grandparents forced a smile onto their faces, and Noah's grandma and Noah went to complete their game of Monopoly. Eventually, Noah found out about his parents, as his grandparents had to tell him. Noah was heartbroken, but he couldn't have done anything about it. 13 years later. That's it. 13 years later, Noah had become a lawyer. He had come home from work, and his grandfather was chatting with him. Noah didn't seem very interested, until his grandfather said, "Your parents would have been proud, Noah." Then Noah started staring at his grandfather. His grandfather continued to say, You should know the cause of your parents' demise, the reason for their death." Noah looked at his grandfather. "It was criminals," he said. "Criminals looking for wealth. Criminals looking for profit. They were in an armored vehicle causing mayhem. They looted everyone that got caught in their crossfire." Noah was enraged at his grandfather for not telling him this piece of information before. Noah went to his private office to find out more about these criminals. He got as much information as he could by doing research and did some investigation of his own. He woke up late the next morning and then went around the internet looking for more info about these criminals. As the sun began to set, he went over his notes. He only figured out that they only commit crimes in Colorado and nowhere else. This was extremely valuable data to him, and it boosted his confidence. On day 2, he figured out that they only commit crimes once a week or once in a couple of weeks. He paused the investigation a bit to analyze the pattern of their crimes. He thought of anything that could create a pattern. And when he looked into the background of their victims within the past month, they had all gotten an increase in earnings about a week before the crime occurred. Noah had hit the muzzleload with this information. He now knew that the crimes were not random and were planned in advance. After 3 months of research, he decided to go to Colorado himself. He said his goodbyes to his grandparents, even though they didn't want him to leave and go up against a bunch of criminals. But Noah wanted to make sure that the criminals organization got what they deserve. In Colorado, Noah got a cheap apartment for rent to do his investigation in. He knew that they only weren't in Colorado and were just committing their crimes over there. But Colorado would be a good starting point. He researched and looked through the backgrounds of as many victims as he could and found out one of their social media accounts. Noah tried his best to contact her and was eventually able to message her. He messaged her if anything suspicious happened in the week before she was pickpocketed. She told him she was in Utah the week before, and she had seen a black van following her around when she was there. She regularly saw the same black van at Dine Fine restaurant, but it never followed her around before. Noah tried to interrogate the other victims, and they were all involved with either Utah or the black van. Noah packed his stuff and went to Utah in his personal car. He got a hotel near the restaurant to rest for the night. The next day, Noah went to the restaurant on foot and ate his breakfast there. After he finished eating his breakfast, he tried his best to get a job there. He asked if he could be a receptionist or a waiter. The manager told him that he could be a waiter. As a waiter, Noah could see outside the glass doors and see whoever enters the hotel and whoever exits. He had to work there for 2 whole weeks to eventually find the black van coming to the hotel. 3 people exited the black van. One of them was tall, but he wasn't skinny. Noah told his manager that he had an emergency and he had to leave. Technically, he wasn't lying. Noah ran to his hotel as fast as he could, grabbed his car, and drove back to the restaurant. He waited for the criminals to start driving their van again so he could begin following them. When they started driving their van, Noah stealthily started his engine and started following them. It was about half an hour of twists and turns. Noah saw them turn into a road that nobody uses. Noah got out of his car and started following them on foot. Now, they exited their van and Noah started recording them. They started talking about their boss and how he would get angry at them if they didn't enter the building quickly. They started running. Noah began going after them in a stealthy manner and recording them at the same time. Noah put all his evidence into one neat document and he put his video into a USB. Even if law enforcement wasn't going to put in the effort to find the criminals, they could at least put in the effort to capture them. Noah given them all the evidence he had against these criminals. All his effort paid off. Law enforcement found and captured the criminals, and he was rewarded with a large sum of prize money, and he became more popular. Noah used his prize money to get a new house for him and his grandparents. He still looked back to the good old days of how he used to hold his mother's hand while crossing the road and how he used to play with his father. His parents used to console him whenever he was injured. His life was never the same without his parents, but he was happy because his parents got the justice they deserved. Thank you for your patience to listen to my story. I hope you enjoyed it.